Forget the postcards and the tourist traps. Kentucky has officially been hiding something, and frankly, it's embarrassing for the rest of us. While the world thinks it's just bourbon and horse races, this state holds a gorge that looks like Utah, a waterfall that turns moonlight into rainbows, and a cave so vast it generates its own weather. Geology, the Ice Age, and a very stubborn river held a meeting and decided Kentucky was the perfect place to leave everything they weren't finished with yet. 6 secret places most tourists never find. And number 3 has more underground miles than this state has highways, and scientists still haven't found the end of it. Let's go. 1. Red River Gorge. We're starting with a place that looks less like Kentucky and more like southern Utah, decided to relocate east of the Mississippi. Red River Gorge, 150 sandstone arches, natural bridges, and rock shelters packed into a 29,000-acre stretch of the Daniel Boone National Forest. The sandstone here is 300 million years old, carved into formations that shouldn't exist this side of the Colorado Plateau. But here they are, dense with arches, thick with cliffs, and aggressively humbling. Sky Bridge sits out over the valley like a stone aircraft carrier. Princess Arch frames the canopy below it like a window into another forest. And the Rock Bridge, a natural arch spanning a creek, is so perfectly formed it looks engineered, not carved. This is a place that demands respect and rewards the prepared explorer. Fun fact, some of the rock shelters in the gorge contain evidence of human habitation going back 10,000 years, making them among the oldest continuously used shelters in North America. Spring and fall for best conditions. Arrive early, the Gray's Arch Trail and Oxier Ridge get crowded by mid-morning. Carry a paper trail map. Cell service disappears in the gorge. And don't underestimate the elevation change on the descents. From impossible arches, we now trade impossible geology for impossible light, because our next stop is the only place in the Western Hemisphere where the moon paints a rainbow across a waterfall. 2. Cumberland Falls plus the Moonbow. From moonlit water, we now descend into a darkness so complete that human eyes never adjust, because our next stop is the longest cave system on Earth, and it has more miles underground than Kentucky has highways on the surface. Wait. Wrong direction for a second. Cumberland Falls first. 125 feet wide, dropping 68 feet into a boulder-strewn gorge, generating a wall of mist so thick it creates its own microclimate on the riverbank. But the waterfall isn't the secret. The Moonbow is. On clear nights near a full moon, the mist catches lunar light and bends it into a lunar rainbow. A moonbow, arcing across the gorge in color so faint the naked eye sees silver white, but a camera on a long exposure reveals the full spectrum. This is the only place in the Western Hemisphere where this happens consistently. New Zealand has one, Scotland has one. That's the list. The Moonbow is only visible 2 to 3 nights per month, and only when the moon is full and unobscured, making it one of the most time-sensitive natural events you can witness in the eastern United States. Check the Moonbow calendar on the Kentucky State Parks website. They publish exact dates and peak times. Bring a tripod and a camera with manual long exposure settings. Dress warmer than you think you need. The mist drops the temperature 10 degrees and arrive at least 30 minutes early to claim a spot at the viewing platform. From moonlit water, we now descend into a darkness so complete that human eyes never adjust, because our next stop is the longest cave system on Earth, and it has more miles underground than Kentucky has highways on the surface. 3. Mammoth Cave, 426 miles of surveyed passages and counting. Every year, explorers map more. Scientists still haven't found the end of it. Mammoth Cave is the longest cave system on Earth, and it isn't close. The second longest is in Mexico at roughly 400 miles. Mammoth could surpass 500 within a decade. The Rotunda is the first major room visitors enter, a natural chamber 60 feet high, carved by an ancient underground river that still flows 300 feet below the surface. When storm systems roll through, the Rotunda fills with fog so thick that visitors have described it as walking into another world. The cave breathes. Air pressure differences between the surface and the interior create wind at the entrances strong enough to extinguish a candle. Saltpeter mining during the War of 1812 left wooden pipe systems and leaching vats still visible in the passageways. Fun fact, Mammoth Cave is home to over 150 species that exist nowhere else on the surface of the Earth, including the Kentucky cave shrimp, a translucent creature roughly 1 inch long that has no eyes and lives in underground streams 300 feet below your feet right now. Book the historic tour or the wild cave tour. The self-guided entrance is underwhelming by comparison. Reservations are essential in summer. They sell out weeks ahead. Wear sturdy shoes with grip. The paths are wet and uneven. And bring a jacket. The cave holds at 54 degrees year-round and the humidity sits near 90%. From perpetual darkness, we now trade underground weather for an open sky so wide it holds herds of elk and bison that most Americans don't even know exist in Kentucky. 4. Land between the lakes. Elk and bison in Kentucky. Not in a zoo, not on a ranch. Roaming 1,700 acres of restored prairie and oak savanna at the elk and bison prairie in land between the lakes. This is what the interior of the continent looked like before European settlement, and it is stunning to see in person. A 3.5-mile loop road winds through the enclosure. Elk graze within 50 feet of your car. Bison cross the road in herds. The prairie rolls to the horizon, and if you arrive at sunrise, the fog lifts off the grass while the elk are still vocal. A sound that hasn't been heard in these numbers in Kentucky for over 150 years. And then there's the Golden Pond Planetarium, one of the darkest sky observation points in the southeastern United States, sitting inside the same recreation area. No light pollution, no city glow, just the Milky Way, the way it looked before electricity. Fun fact, the elk restoration at Land Between the Lakes began in 1996 with just 11 animals from Elk Island National Park in Alberta, and the herd now numbers over 70, making it one of the most successful eastern elk restorations in the United States. Arrive at the Prairie Loop at dawn. The elk are most active in the first 2 hours of light, and the bison move to shaded areas by mid-morning. Primitive camping is available at several sites within LBL. The planetarium runs shows on weekends. Check the schedule and bring binoculars. The elk keep their distance during rutting season. From roaming herds, we now trade open grassland for walls of sandstone rising straight out of the forest. Because our next stop carved 150 miles of gorges through the Cumberland Plateau, and almost nobody outside Kentucky talks about it. 5. Big South Fork. 150 miles of sandstone gorges, sheer walls dropping up to 200 feet into river canyons, carved over 300 million years by the Big South Fork of the Cumberland River, making it the most concentrated gorge system east of the Mississippi that most Americans have never heard of. Twin arches, the North Arch and the South Arch, form the largest natural bridge complex in Kentucky, and one of the largest east of the Mississippi. The North Arch spans 93 feet. The South Arch spans 135. Together, they form a double bridge that looks like the entrance to something ancient and forgotten. The Blue Heron Coal Camp sits inside the gorge, a partially reconstructed mining community from the 1930s, accessible by a descent into the canyon on a scaled replica of the original tipple. You walk through actual mine openings, past original foundations, and the ambient recordings of miners' voices echo through the camp like ghosts still on the clock. The Big South Fork River is one of the few free-flowing rivers in the eastern United States, meaning it has no dams, no diversions, and no artificial controls on its flow, making it one of the last wild rivers east of the Mississippi. Hike the Twin Arches Loop. It's roughly 3 miles and covers both arches plus the Charrette Creek Lodge area. Allow a half day for blue heron. Carry water, the gorge stays cooler but the humidity is intense, and the drive into the gorge is steep and winding. Take it slow. From sandstone gorges, we now climb to a final place where a 78-foot bridge of solid rock hangs in the sky, and you can ride a sky lift straight to it. 6. Daniel Boone National Forest Natural Bridge. 78 feet long, 65 feet high. A bridge of solid sandstone suspended above the forest floor like nature forgot to finish the mountain and left the doorway standing. Natural Bridge is the signature formation of the Daniel Boone National Forest, and it has been drawing visitors since the sky lift opened in 1967. The lift carries you from the valley floor to the bridge in a glass-bottomed gondola, rising through the canopy until the arch appears through the trees, and it is a moment that works every single time. The original trail, a steep switchbacking path, is the hiking alternative, and it passes through a narrow rock corridor called Fat Man Squeeze that opens directly onto the bridge. It begs the question, how did a bridge of solid rock form here, and what happened to the rest of the mountain that used to sit on top of it? The Sheltowee Trace, a 319-mile national recreation trail, passes through the forest and connects Natural Bridge to Red River Gorge and beyond, making this entire region a single connected wilderness that most visitors only see one piece of. And for those who want water after rock, Cave Run Lake sits at the northern end of the forest. 8,000 acres of water surrounded by hills, with almost none of the crowds that choke the gorge in season. Fun fact, the Skylift at Natural Bridge has been operating continuously since 1967, making it one of the oldest continuously operating chairlifts at a natural attraction in the United States. The Skylift runs seasonally. Check before you go. The original trail is steep and has stairs. Wear real hiking shoes, not sneakers. The Sheltowee Trace is marked but remote. Carry a map if you're section hiking. And Cave Run Lake is best accessed from the Kentucky State Route 801 entrance for the least crowded shoreline. Kentucky doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you listen closely, it tells stories older than memory, written in stone, sand, and silence. If this video changed how you see Kentucky, hit like, subscribe for more unseen places, and comment which spot you'd visit first. If this video made you laugh, dream, or scream road trip, you will love the next video. Click here. The next wonder is one click away.